Hi, and welcome back to the live book launch for The Big Secret with my good friend Jack Canfield, along with leading experts from all over the world, including our next guest, who is one of the co-authors of this book that just came out today. And we're going to be talking about something that is really, really powerful. We're talking about how to harness the power from within. Because so many of us need a little more power, we need a little more energy. We want to do more in the world, but we're not exactly sure how to do it. And our next guest is going to teach you exactly how to do it. She is an author, a speaker, a mentor, a mother, a trauma graduate, and most importantly, an entrepreneur who is out there shaping and changing lives. And she's going to reveal to you the big secret to have more power come from within. Welcome, my good friend, Dr. Jessica Vera. How are you doing?
Good, Greg. How are you?
Yeah, fantastic. It's an exciting day, right?
Very exciting day.
You know,
very exciting
book coming
day.
out today. You know, you have so many cool things that you're doing. Why did you think that it was important for you to write this book now and talk about the power coming from within?
I think there hasn't been a better time in our history for this type of genre. You know, everyone's in self-development and everyone's looking for the next big thing, whether it be business or personal development. And I thought The Big Secret was perfect because it basically brought together a whole bunch of collaborative minds, bringing expertise from different genres, and I thought I had something to contribute.
I love it. And so we're going to talk about what you contributed here today. We're going to teach some incredible things. What are some of the big problems that you see out there in the marketplace when it comes to people having success or finding that big secret or taking that next step in their life?
I think the biggest problem is ourselves. We don't know how to get out of our own way.
Okay.
We have so much history, we have so many things that stifle us in our potential, and they're all from within, typically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is the biggest problem I find, that the mental blocks that people have and the self-sabotaging that occurs, those are the big issues.
And the great thing is that's something that we can work on.
Absolutely.
It's not that we were born that way. We can work on that. We can change these things. We can make ourselves better, right?
Yeah, we learned them so we can unlearn them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Before we get into that, and we're going to share 7 core principles for success with everyone here today, I want to know a little bit about the Dr. J story.
Oh.
Who is Dr. J and how did you get here to be teaching these kinds of things here today?
Okay, well, Dr. J is, it all started as a young child, so I speak from experience. As a very young child, I was sexually exploited repeatedly, quite a bit. So I come from a history of abuse and a lot of trauma. And I had to learn how to get myself out of that pit, Greg. I had to learn the skills and the knowledge in order to be able to help myself. And out of that tragedy, which was I call it a huge life setback, I was able to set myself up to learn over the last 30 years everything there is to know about trauma and how it affects and stifles human potential. So now I've used that as a platform to really help others who find themselves in the pit and don't know how to get out.
And the sad scenarios, there are so many people who are in that pit.
Absolutely.
And while you were going through this, and we all know it, there's 2 paths to go on, right?
Absolutely.
You can keep going down that path. You can have pity on yourself. You can continue, doing those same things, but you chose kind of the other route. Was there an epiphany moment? Was there some place? Was there someone you met where you're just like, you know what? I'm going to pull myself out of this. I can change.
Yeah, I wish it was an upbeat moment, but it's not. It wasn't an upbeat moment. You know, we all have to hit the pit, that moment in your life where you're at the very bottom of that pit. And for me, it came around the age of 30 when I had the realization, the aha moment that we all call, where I had been a victim for most of my young life, and for the first time in my life, I victimized. I became a perpetrator. I took a decision in my life to end the life that hadn't started yet because I didn't feel worthy to become a mom. And that really shocked me to my core because it taught me that trauma can be inflicted on us, but we also can be the authors of our own trauma. And that changed my life and my trajectory forever. I decided at that point I was not going to be a victim, nor was I going to victimize others, and I was going to eradicate human exploitation.
Now, this is obviously hitting the rock bottom. Like, we don't wish that upon anyone to get there. But what came out of that was you were able to take control back in your life.
Absolutely.
Right? So you were able to do some of the things that we're talking about today. You were able to, if things aren't going your way, if your habits, your beliefs, the way that you think is not correct, you had to make a huge change to get them on that right course, right?
Absolutely. And that takes a deep dive. You really have to dive deep into your subconscious mind, and you know my background, right? I'm all about the clinical and psychology, so it is a path that's not an easy path. It's a journey. It's like peeling an onion. You've got to take a journey through life, and it evolves, but it's something you definitely have to do if you want to be able to break those mind blocks.
Yeah, and so as we talk about breaking mind blocks, there again is the path where you go to maybe traditional medicine and they put you on pharmaceuticals or they put you on depression drugs or whatever that case is. But there's a much more powerful thing that you can do that we're going to talk about here today, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not in any way, and please hear me when I say this, if you need to go down the path of, pharmacology and medicine, then do, because that means that you're in the pit and you can't get out on your own. There's no shame in asking for help. But if you're in a position where you have the ability to take on the responsibility on your own, I'm going to show you how.
Yeah, I love that. And so we're going to start out with kind of these 7 core principles that provide the framework of your essence, as you call it. So I think what is our essence?
Okay.
And then where did kind of these 7 principles come from?
All right. Well, basically, I developed a process model that was based on my own learning and on my own education, and it requires you to go through, 3 steps that allow you to go and take a deep dive, find some of the triggers in your subconscious mind, reconstruct them, realign them, use linguistic reprogramming and neural pathway reprogramming so that you can come out the other side and change your behavior.
Okay.
So the last step in that process is all about connecting your core with your creator, because for me, there's nothing more important. And I believe that resilience, which is the secret sauce that we all talk about, that's resilience. And how you build resilience is being able to, overcome adversities in your life, but you can't do it alone. You have to know that there's something bigger than yourself in order to be able to do that. So essence came out of that understanding that through being able to ignite your core powerhouse, as I call it, then you're going to be able to find your uniqueness, because that's what essence is all about. It's your uniqueness, and it's an acronym. It stands for something very specific. You want me to jump in?
We'll jump into that in just a second. I want to talk about the kind of tapping into that core power that we have. Okay. Right? How important is that, and do you think that most people are actually using their core strengths and their core abilities?
Absolutely not.
Well, I was setting you up there, but I mean.
Absolutely not. We're not using them in general. I work with thousands of people who are stifled. That is my genre, and I work with the broken. And so when I see that, it breaks my heart, because they're not able to tap into their faith. They have no faith in life other than within their own strengths. And if you live that way, you fall short. You fall short because you just don't have the ability to see beyond. You're in that darkness, you can't see the light. And so, I'd have to say candidly, no, most people don't tap into that strength. And the way to be able to do that is you have to start by loving yourself first. And if you can't love yourself first, you can't love others, and you certainly can't accept love.
Now, I think a lot of people would say that if we have to love ourselves first, that's selfish.
Absolutely not.
But it's the opposite, right?
It absolutely is. I mean, there's a distinctive difference between self-love and loving yourself.
Okay.
Big difference. Like, there's a huge genre, a paradigm of thinking that is very egocentric, that it's all about me, it's selfish.
Right.
No. Self-love is about having compassion for yourself. Having compassion, recognizing your strengths, your gifts, your passions, the things that were innately given to you uniquely.
Yeah.
And so that's what I propose that we have to build. We have to build that self-compassion, because that's what's missing. That's the vulnerability that we all have.
Yeah. And so we're going to walk you through the 7 steps of essence here today. That's going to help people to get on that track, to find the things that they are the best in the world at, to find that connection with themselves, to have that self-love, and ultimately, find that big secret to success.
Yes.
You ready to rock? All right.
Ready to rock.
So the first one, obviously, for the E in essence is exist.
Exist, absolutely. And the key to that is finding purpose. And I know we hear a lot about that, like what is purpose and how do I find my purpose? And this is the quintessential question of significance, really. Because you can be an identical twin and you're not genetically identical. Right?
Of course.
So the key is finding that uniqueness. And for me, it was always in the past of the history. I believe that God leaves clues, not in all successes like most people think, but really I believe he leaves clues in failures. And being able to see, from the pit and from the dark sides and from the adversities, what little nuggets of gold were left there that make you uniquely who you are. So it's finding those and identifying those in order to find your purpose. because the second is the S, right? And the S is your soul power, and that's where you bring in the second component, which is your passion. And there is no such thing as one passion. I can tell you from my own experience, I have multiple passions,
right,
as I'm sure you do,
yeah,
right? But the key is to be able to harness your passion and your purpose and find that unique selling proposition, that uniqueness that is only your own, that I believe is gifted by your creator. I honestly do.
I love that. So I'm going to kind of talk about both of these first two pieces. So finding the purpose, looking at the past. Is it as simple as just sitting down and thinking for a little bit about events that have occurred in the past? Are there any specific questions you might ask a client or a patient or someone that you're working with that help them to discover these things?
Absolutely. Usually when I meet someone, they start off by, like you did, what's your story? Where'd you come from? And most people look at their story from a very negative lens 9 times out of 10.
Right.
And so I'll look at it from a completely different perspective, and so I'll look for the exception questions. So this happened to you. What did you learn from that? What came out of that? What strength did you gather from that?
Yeah.
And they will have, typically people don't think in those terms.
Right.
And so they'll be like, oh, you mean there was something good from that? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'm telling you, like, I was repeatedly exploited. I can't imagine that anyone would think there was anything good that came out of that,
yeah,
but I can assure you that there were, because that's what gave me the strength to move forward. And one of the key, gold nuggets was the fact that I learned very early on that, others' impressions of me and others' perceptions on me and others' judgments could be quite detrimental. So you learn how to put that as a strength. So now you become confident. You look for those strengths instead of those weaknesses. That's the philosophy. It's looking for the exception in the adversity, in those pain points.
The exception in the adversity.
Absolutely.
That's really cool. And then you tied in with the second piece, which is soul and discovering your passions.
Yes.
And I love when you put them together. You said you find like your USP, your unique selling proposition, or what makes you unique. And I believe that there are a lot of people out there going around who don't believe that they're unique. Like,
right,
I'm just a real estate agent in Orlando, Florida, and there's thousands of me. I'm not unique. Right?
Absolutely.
But that's a big mistake, right?
Absolutely a big mistake. And the key is, you can have two individuals, like, for example, your previous guest, she talked all about essence as well. She talked about finding, your uniqueness and your power and using affirmation and positive. But irrespective, the stories are different and there's uniqueness to each one, and there's strengths on each one. The key is, there's a misnomer out there that says, take somebody else's stuff and tweak it a little bit and make it your own. I have an issue with that, because I think that we all have something to contribute, honestly. Right. And even though it may sound the same, and even though it may appear the same, there is something unique about you, your essence, that you're going to be able to put to that information, that content. I'm a psychologist, and you could have 50 psychologists, and they're all going to be the same, because they've been trained the same.
Right, they all went through the same education,
Absolutely.
But you all have different backgrounds,
but
you have different
stories. Backgrounds, different stories, different gifts. So when you sit at the table with another person, you meet them uniquely at a different place.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful, and it goes back to kind of those first couple questions we talked about, like, what's your story? That is unique, because your story is completely different than my story, completely different from your daughter's story, completely different from anyone who's there.
Absolutely.
And that's where you find those passion points, that's where you find those pieces. And that's what we relate to, right? Because I'm going to relate to you differently than I relate to someone else because of your uniqueness.
Right.
Your story.
Absolutely.
I love it. So you got those first two pieces. You have the essence and you have the soul, finding your purpose, finding your passions. Now we get into the second S here, which is sense.
Yes, sense. And this is an area that I love because it's not very well understood, and it's not very well studied, and it's not very well used to leverage, which is emotional intelligence.
Okay.
It's learning to be able to be in touch with your senses. You would think, as a scientist myself, I'm very, cognitive, very shoulder up concentrated. And the reality is we don't spend enough time shoulders down. Understanding how your body's reacting, understanding how you're tingling, understanding if you're perspiring, if you're having physiological changes, and how the environment and things affect you. The more that we become in touch with our senses, like in mindfulness, I'm sure you've heard it, it's a very, up and coming philosophy and ancient practice that's being very secularized today.
Yeah.
You learn all about the fact that the body actually can give the mind a lot of messages that traditionally we don't pay attention to.
You don't think that way,
Right. So it's all about connecting your body with your mind.
So what are some steps that we can do to either A, be more conscious of our body and our emotions and our reactions? What are some things whether to test it out or whether to take some steps.
So a simple strategy is to do a mindfulness activity, which is basically to do a 3-minute active meditation. And when I say active meditation, and it may sound a little bit counterintuitive, because meditation, you're simply thinking, oh, I'm going to empty my mind, right? I'm going to sit there and be in hum. But what I love about mindful meditation is you're allowing whatever thoughts are coming in, whatever feelings are coming in to just pass. And you're just acknowledging them, but at the same time, you're intentionally recognizing them. And it seems like a really simple practice, but it is profoundly effective. Science has proven that it reduces like your neurotransmitters in a way that reduces your stress level. So 3 minutes a day, you sit and you just sit plainfully, you know, and just allow things to happen and don't judge, because we have a very judgmental, predisposed mind. You know, everything that's coming in, we want to shut it out, or everything that's seems intrusive, we want to quiet it. But in actuality, there's a lot of value in understanding and hearing all of that and allowing things to be felt. And so becoming more in touch with the present moment is key.
Yeah, and which is hard for a lot of people, especially with all the distractions coming in and the beeping and the dinging and the pressures from the outside world. I love this. It's just 3 minutes once a day.
Once a day.
Don't need the fancy rug or anything. Sit in a chair.
Whatever's comfortable. Whatever. If you want to be on the rug, great. If you want to be in the chair, great. If you want to be in bed, doesn't matter. The key is to be present with yourself in that moment.
Just 3 minutes.
3 minutes. 3 minutes a day.
Well, that's so simple.
It is.
Right? But now you got to do it, right? As you're watching along at home, don't do it right now. Wait till the end of the presentation. But maybe today at lunchtime, take 3 minutes, maybe right before bed tonight. Take 3 minutes, active meditation. Don't judge, just be present for 3 minutes. Give us 3 minutes. Very, very good start. So we talked about sense. Now we get into the next E, which is emanate.
Yeah, and emanating is all about putting out positive synergistic energy. You know, even when you're in a place where you wake up and, you know, the world seems grim and dark, and you step out of your bed and you don't even know what's going to happen next, the key is the filter. The key is, you know, make sure that every morning you affirm yourself and go out with a positive attitude. Because when you put out positive energy, you draw in positive energy. If you put out negative energy, you're going to draw the same in. So the key is, you know, to emanate positive energy so that you are synergistic and draw the same again to you.
Yeah, and this is very, very powerful. And the great thing is every day when we wake up, when our feet hit the floor, we can make that decision to put out positive or negative energy. And so what are, whether they're daily practices that you do or you teach to others, what are some things you do to start off that day by putting out this positive energy?
So there's a real simple technique that you could use. It's called affirming language. It's called, you know, we like to make it very scientific and call it neuro-linguistic reprogramming, but in actuality, all you're doing is changing your actual use of language from things that are negatively charged to words that are positive. You know, good morning, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself, this is a great day. Simple like that. As opposed to, oh damn, it looks really cloudy out there, oh my God, it's going to be horrible today, you know, I've got so many things to do. And that simple messaging to your own mind has powerful impact. It changes the lens, changes the perspective for the day.
Very, very simple, right? So again, the positive outlook instead of the negative outlook. And again, just like we talked about with the active meditation, this is something you can start the day with, but also in the middle of the day, you catch yourself
all day long.
Bad email comes in. You're like, oh, nope, that was actually a great email because now I can fix the problem. Like, it's just those little subtle changes, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Cut me off? Yeah, no. Go ahead, sweetheart.
You needed to get there
you
faster
needed to go there faster than me.
So I love that. I mean, other practices, I mean, you've heard like, you know, from gratitude journals and things like that, just anything that you can do to put out that positive energy is powerful.
And you know, our bodies have energy, and there's something called therapeutic tapping. I'm sure you've heard of that too. And so I do a lot of that kind of work with people because, again, as I said before, I work specifically with individuals who come from a trauma background. So, you know, they harbor these negative emotions and they don't know how to release them. And so tapping is one very simple way. They call it the 1 minute miracle. And in some cases it can be. If you have a fear or a phobia, you know, there's meridian points on your body that you basically tap and you use positive language to reprogram and it releases the energy miraculously. Isn't that interesting how God created us?
Again, what I love about all these things so far, these tips that you're giving people is they're not, you know, I have to now spend 20 days in a,
No.
a monk monastery. Like it's the little daily actions that you can do that start to make these changes.
And that is the key, Greg. It's all about taking action, because
Yeah.
what stifles us the most is inaction.
Right.
We sit there and we ponder and we get consumed with all of our thoughts and we don't do anything about it. These are simple things that you can do to move forward.
Yeah, so far you told me to meditate for 3 minutes and change my language.
Absolutely.
So, and then find my passion, what I'm good at, tell my story more. So again, simple little things, but it's these little things that add up over time.
Absolutely.
That make the big change.
Yes.
So we talked about emanating, putting out that positive energy into the world. Now we need to navigate.
Yes, because life is real, right? We all have ebbs and flows.
Yep.
And so I'm not going to sit there and make it, rainbows and chocolate all day long, right? Because it's not. So the key is, be prepared.
Yeah.
The adversity is going to happen. It's going to happen. It's promised in life. And so the key is when they do happen, you need to be prepared that they were going to happen. And therefore, you have the resources on hand so that you'll be able to, face them, walk through them, and come out the other side a better person.
Something interesting you said there, so I wrote down, is being prepared for them.
Yes, because a lot of people live in this fictitious, imaginary world that everything is wonderful, and if you think positively, everything's going to be positive. There is some value to being very positive, but at the same time, it sets people up for the misnomer that life is always going to draw in the positive, and it doesn't happen. We all have, adversities through life, and so keeping it real. Being aware of the fact that, yes, you might have a loss. Yes, you might lose your job. Yes, all of a sudden you might find yourself in financial hardship. It could happen. But the key is, if you're aware of the fact that it could happen and you stay intentional in that and you've been doing the work, you're going to have the resources to be able to, face it. Don't put your head in the sand, because that's not going to do it. You're going to have to face it. You're going to have to go through it, and you're going to have to come out the other side, but you're going to come out the other side much stronger.
Yeah, so is this where we we control our emotional state?
You control your emotional state. Yeah, you control your emotional state so you're not reacting, but you're responding. It's very important that we respond to life adversities as opposed to being, caught unprepared and reacting, because out of reaction comes impulsive behavior, and that never leads to anything good. Whereas when you're responding, you basically have time to think about it. You've decluttered your mind of some of those faulty beliefs that you have. You've done some work, so you know what your assets are, and you draw upon them in those moments.
So whether it's the preparation or when it happens, the reacting versus responding, any techniques or anything you teach folks?
I'm going to teach you something so simple you're going to laugh, but it's breathing. Learn to breathe, because, like in this scenario, before this, I was had a little anxiety, little performance anxiety. It happens to me every single time. And of course, I have to stop and I have to be intentional about doing some deep cleansing breaths. People just don't breathe. They do diaphragmatic breathing, which is very high level breathing, very short, very fast, and then they wonder why they're hyperventilating.
Well, what happened?
Yeah, really, right. Your lungs are big, people. So you really, really need to make an intentional effort to breathe deep into your gut. And take a couple of really deep breaths, and while you're doing that, be aware of those breaths. Simple strategy, but it slows down your heart rate, it slows down your respiration, it brings all of your neurotransmitters down, and that's what you need, so that you can be leveled-headed. Yeah,
and talking again about reacting versus responding, the person who reacts didn't breathe.
No.
Someone cut me off, I'm not taking a breath and then, giving them the business. It's the person, deep breath. Think about it. Great. Now I can respond rationally, move on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So again, simple technique. Breathe. So if something happens today at work, someone sends you a bad email, someone cuts you off in traffic, things don't go your way, your kids, throw spaghetti on the wall, take a deep breath. Couple deep breaths.
Stop and breathe.
Stop and breathe. And respond, don't react. I think that's very powerful. Gets us into the sixth piece in essence, which is character.
Yes. I love this piece because I've been doing a lot of work and a lot of development in this piece. In psychology, we spend a lot of time in pathology, right? That is our entire, book of business. And the reality is it's not my heart. And so I started a lot of work years ago on character building, like building upon people's strengths. And most people don't take enough time to really look at, where are my strengths? What are the 5 top things that I do really, really well?
Right.
And spend more time there versus on the 95 areas that you are weak in. And that is a huge mistake. And I'll say it from this perspective, and I'm sure you know this rule of thumb, but it's the 20-80 rule, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you want to spend more time on things that give you the greatest return. Well, it applies to yourself as well. You want to be able to build upon the things that you do well, that you are gifted in, and perfect those areas, as opposed to spending 80% of your time in areas that, number one, won't give you the same return because you're not gifted.
Yeah.
And number two, they could have been given to someone else to do for you.
Especially as an entrepreneur, it's the delegating, the outsourcing, getting on someone else's plate. So you spend your time, I'm spending a lot of time researching, getting into flow states and things like that. Is, that time where, you started at 8 a.m. and you look up, you're like, holy crap, it's 7 p.m. How did that happen? It's because you were doing what you were supposed to be doing.
Absolutely. We were talking about that this morning.
Well, and we've also all had those days where at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're like, oh my God, it's only 3 o'clock. And it's because you're probably doing things that you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah. If the tension's hitting the shoulders and you're getting the migraine, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing.
But this it sounds really simple, like writing down 5 things you do well, whatever, 3, 5, 7, 10 things. Sounds simple, but I would imagine a lot of people have some difficulty in figuring out what it is that they do well, because we've been taught since elementary school that we need to be well-rounded.
Absolutely.
That I'm good at math. Well, stop doing math because your grades in science are failing. Well, no, I should do more math, right? And that's what we're taught from a young age, right?
Absolutely. You're brainwashed. Got that? Yes, we are. We are very much taught that. But, research has shown otherwise now. Yeah, we're finding much more substantiation for the fact that, again, as we are educating our kids, look what happened. We started segmenting genders and saying, oh, well, girls are not good at science and math. Well, no. And so all of our STEM programs started to go to the boys. And now a 6-year-old girl, you ask her what she wants to do, never science and math.
No.
Why? Because we've reprogrammed them to think that way. And poo-poo on us, right? Because really, there's a lot of individuals, girls and boys, who are very good in science and math. And so we should be building on those strengths. How do you find them? It's a simple technique of reflection. Sitting down for 5 minutes a day and just making a list of the things you have to do. It's in the commonalities of the things that you do on a daily basis.
Yep.
And then looking at those 10 things, let's say, that you have to do on a daily basis, and looking at the ones that give you the greatest joy.
Yeah.
The ones that give you the greatest joy, as you said, flow, energy, they happen almost instantaneous without much effort. Those are your strengths.
Yeah.
And the others that are very arduous and taxing and draw a lot of energy from you and give you the headaches and the muscle tension, those are the ones you want to put at the bottom of the list and maybe delegate, right?
Yeah, well, and it also doesn't mean that you're only ever going to do things that are in your strengths, right? So as entrepreneur, business owner, I still got to do taxes.
You still got to do them.
Never going to be my strength,
Never going to be your strength.
But you have to do them. But I spend, like you said, 80% of my time on the things that give me, the most joy, the most satisfaction, where I'm doing my highest calling. And then, 20% of the time I am going to have to, deal with whether it's employee issues or payroll or tax, whatever those things are.
But it's that shift in your mind that makes all the difference in the world. If you know that the fact that you can enjoy what you're doing, because when we work, right, if you feel like you're working, you're not doing what you should be doing, because work shouldn't feel that way.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it shifts your mind completely, because then that 20% doesn't become arduous. You have to do it, but you've enjoyed the parts that you love to do first, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as you are playing along at home, find those 5 things that you do really well. And as Dr. J said, maybe make a list of the 10 things that you, if it's the end of the day, that you did today. 10 things that you did today. What things did you love doing? What things did you enjoy doing? What things did you loathe doing? And start figuring out what those strengths are. Maybe look at it over the course of 5 work days, and you start to see a pattern in the things that you enjoy doing. You start to see a pattern in the things you don't enjoy doing.
Absolutely.
And find your strengths, build that character to find your essence. And it brings us to the 7th and final piece here, in essence, is essential.
Yeah, it's your essential absolutes. Know your GPS, know your guiding principle system, because if you don't have one, you are going to allow life to happen to you instead of enjoying life and having direction in your life. And I love this last principle because it all ties back into your core, your core being tied to the universe, the creator, God, however you identify. For me, it's God. He directs my life, and for that reason, I'm very linear in my path, you know, and I say it's an absolute because yes, we might fall off the path every so often, but you have that foundation, those foundational beliefs. Know your belief system, understand them, be very clear about them, so that you have a clear path, a roadmap, you know. Like in business, you have to have a strategic plan in order for a business to thrive. Anyone who's doing a business without one is going to fail. It's a given. Likewise, in life, you need to have a life plan. And so I do a lot of work with people doing self-guided life plans. And it's a very simple strategy, but it gives you direction. And part of that is knowing your belief systems and having that guided principle system in place.
So one thing that I believe is that most people can easily tell you the things that they don't want in their life.
Yes.
I don't like this relationship. I don't like this job. I don't like my house. I don't like my kids. Whatever, whatever that is. And we love both of we love our kids.
We love our kids, really.
But I think most people they very easily can tell you the things that they don't want. But then as soon as you ask them, so Dr. J, what do you want? They don't really know the answer to that.
A lot of people don't take that time, right?
Yeah.
So those are simple strategy. Want me to teach you?
I would love it.
Love it. Can I borrow a piece of paper?
You can.
All right. So you take a piece of paper like this, like a white piece of paper, you just fold it in half one time. You fold it in half a second time. This only took 5 years to learn. Joking. All right. So when you open it up, you're going to have 4 quarters, right? You want to look at the 4 areas of your life that you feel are the most important. For example, family, finances, leisure, vocation, your work. And you want to use each quadrant to then identify 5 things that you want to achieve in each of those areas over a specific period of time. Say 3 months, say 6 months, say a year. This is a self-guided life plan. It is so simple, but at the same time, it allows you to think in a different way. It allows you to envision what it is that you would like to, you desire in these areas of your life over a short-term period. And by schematically writing it out and having a visual in front of you, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of vision boards, okay? But this life plan is a little different because it actually gives you a roadmap and it gives you tangible actions to take. Yeah. It makes it more tangible for the individual. Yeah. And that, I think, is the key. Because when you ask people very, you verbally ask them a question, so what do you want in your life? They look at you dumbfounded, as you well said, right? Yeah. But the minute you start breaking it down and saying, okay, so in family, what is it exactly that you envision? What would you love? Would you love to have a partner? Would you like to get married? Do you want children? It becomes more tangible. And so this is a process to do that.
Great exercise. Dan, if we're on the close shot here, so I drew this, 2 minutes.
2 seconds.
You can do this exercise, right? No fancy apps. You don't I think the idea of a plan scares people because we think of like a financial plan. We go to the financial advisor and he's like, it's like a 3-week arduous process and you bring in all these, but with a life plan, I love this. It's just like, what do you want from your family?
Yeah.
Well, you should know, right? Like,
what do you want? Tangibly, what do you want?
Break what do you want? Finances, looking at that. What do you want, from leisure? What do you want to do? Do you want to travel? And then what do you want from your work? I mean, you made it very, very simple. Again, kind of goes back to this whole piece, simplicity, 3 minutes of meditation, changing your language, breathing before, responding, and then this very simple 4-quadrant life plan. So we've kind of gone through these 7 core success principles. If we've done some of these exercises, we start to put it in this place, what kind of happens, or how do these all play together, I guess?
What happens is basically you have, neural pathway reprogramming from a very cognitive perspective. Yeah. But from a very simplistic perspective is you're going to see some tangible changes. Your outlook is going to change. It's going to be more positive. You're going to be taking more action where you had been inactive. Yeah. And I would tell you the greatest breakthrough you're going to have is you're going to start to love yourself again. And that is key. If we did more of that, there would be more peace in this world, honestly. I agree. If we love ourselves first, as they say, then we can love others, right? Mm-hmm. So in essence, that is what will happen when you do these 7 success principles. It's a lot of little teeny things, but as you said, they compound and they make significant impact. And it doesn't need to be complicated. Yes, psychology is complicated, but this does not need to be complicated.
Yeah, I think we like to complicate things because then it gives us an excuse not to do things. When you make it easy, you gave them no barriers, no roadblocks to make these changes in your life. And so this is a great starting foundation. A lot of the tips, the exercises, things that you did. But if we want to take this to kind of another step, kind of take that next level, you've created what you call the 3R process model. Yes. And this is really where we do a lot of inner work to really help to reset the foundation of our mind and how we think. Talk to us about how we take kind of what we just learned, how do we now use this 3R process model and where it came from.
The model came from neurocognitive behavioral reprogramming. And it's basically an area of study that has had very limited attention given to, which is the emotive dissonance that happens, like knowing my background, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in essence, when you have behaviors and when you have experiences, rather, when you're very young, because of the emotional charge that's associated, it gets imprinted in your subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is like the iceberg that we all use to, demographically show this. It's like you only see the surface, and we work from the surface. But that iceberg has a huge lower segment. And if we don't deal with the subconscious faulty thinking and emotions that are linked, it will stifle, it will create blocks in your conscious mind. And so the 3R process is all about, it's a deeper dive. It is all about a deeper dive. But it's also very self-guided, very simplistic. It sounds very complex, but it's very simplistic.
Yeah.
All you really have to do is, in step 1, you got to be able to,
Yeah. Let's
show.
do it.
Yeah. Okay. I don't want to jump
No,
ahead.
no,
right?
we're getting
all
into
right,
it,
all right.
yeah.
So step 1, you're basically looking at your psychological triggers. You're looking at your behavior and looking at, like, for example, I used to walk into elevators, a simple thing, right? But the elevator would make me start to perspire. My heart would start racing. I'd think, racing thoughts. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
It's just an elevator.
It's just an elevator. And of course, it's not just an elevator, right? It's being enclosed in a small space. It's, that confinement, right?
Yeah.
And it brings you back to the memories that were in the subconscious mind from when you were little. And so I teach how to connect the conscious mind with the subconscious faulty thinking and memories that you have embedded. It's hard work. It's not easy work. I'm not going to tell you it's easy work. It's like peeling an onion. Once you've gotten through one layer, you think you've got it. No, there's a few more layers you have to go through. But it's an easy process. So you identify your triggers, which leads to being able to be more cognizant of your emotions. And so that's where the reactive response comes in, because what happens with triggers is your behavior is very reactive. It's actually unconsciously reactive. It's not even intentional.
Right. It's like when you went into the
like
elevator,
the elevator.
It's an automatic reaction.
Automatic reaction. Or you meet a person for the first time, you don't understand why you have this aversion
Trust
to them.
issue or-
Absolutely, and trust, right? So we do a deep dive. We identify the triggers. I help you to reposition your emotions and thoughts. It's a little bit guided in this regard, and then you're able to reprogram those aspects so that you can uncover the deep-seated trauma memories or the memories from adversity that have been stifling, blocking you.
So would a first step in this be consciously looking at some of the triggers? Like for you, was the elevator in this perspective?
Absolutely.
So the first step in the entire 3R process is really identifying some of those triggers.
Identifying
right?
the triggers. So that's the key, and I have a really simple way to do that. It's just a chart where you basically look at, you do some reflective work and you try to identify things like going into an elevator or being in a specific situation or being surrounded by people and having those feelings, and I have you describe them, because we don't describe senses very well, and so I have you describe them, and by using the language that you do, we're able to identify what the trigger and the emotion is together. So that's what reset is all about, is identifying those triggers.
All right, cool. And then after we've identified those triggers and reset, now we need to realign
them.
Yep.
Right, absolutely. And this is all cognitive restructuring, so you have to deconstruct those faulty thoughts and memories and beliefs from the triggers that you have, and then you have to realign them. You have to start doing some rationalization, realizing that, hey, going into an elevator is not a big deal, and not every elevator is going to have the boogeyman inside the elevator.
Right.
And so
unless it does, and then you're in big trouble.
Then you're really in big trouble. But in most cases, it does not.
Yeah.
And so you walk into the elevator and you do your deep breathing, and you are able to control your senses and bring down your physiological reaction that you're having in the elevator, and you find, hey, I can be in this elevator. It's all good. It's going from 3 to 1, and we're good. And I get off, and we're fine.
Yeah, I love that.
So that's realigning. Realigning is basically connecting the irrational, reaction that is emotive and the thoughts that go along with that, and reprogramming them in a way that's rational.
Makes a lot of sense.
Makes a lot of sense.
So we've identified the triggers, we've deconstructed the beliefs from those triggers, and now we reconcile
Absolutely.
the process.
And reconcile is all about the outward behavior, correct? And so in this, the key is building your self-compassion. It's also about, replacing those negative emotions that you have carried, like shame and guilt and, secrecy and the way things make you feel because of all of that. And then replacing those with gratitude and love and compassion for yourself. key aspect of reconciling. And of course, in that step, everything has to do with being able to see that there's something bigger than yourself.
Yeah, which goes back to kind of the 7 steps that we talked about earlier, just the little things like replacing language, replacing, you know,
these are the strategies.
All these pieces play together. So you have this 3R process model. I know that you have been working on some programs and things like this to teach people how to go through this process. I mean, talk a little bit about some of the work that you do to help people and who might be really good to go through this 3R process.
You know, honestly, I believe that the process is for everyone, because even if you have not had trauma, you've had adversity in your life. And if it happened, you know, we now know scientifically that anything that happens between 0 and 5 affects you in your adulthood. So you need to look at that and look at it in a way that is, you know, transparent for yourself, because most of us want to just hide our head in the sand and say, oh, I had a great childhood, nothing went wrong. However, you know, we have 5 failed relationships, we can't seem to find our partner, you know, we get money, but we seem to spend it because we don't know why.
Right.
And all of these things tie back to your belief systems and those unconscious memories that you have. So I believe it's for everyone. I don't believe that everyone needs to take as deep a dive necessarily. So there's ways about utilizing the information in a way that serves you personally, where you're at. It meets you where you're at. It really does. And the programs are self-guided. There's also a mentoring component if you want to engage in that. So that's what it is.
I love that. And I think one of the first steps that people can take is an assessment that you created called the Fit Life Score Assessment. I think it's like 17 questions. It takes like a handful of minutes. This isn't like a 3-hour SAT course you need to go through. Talk to me a little bit about what you guys have created. And I think more importantly, after we've gone through these 17 questions, what happens then?
Okay. So the assessment is designed to give you a composite life score. So it's just a gauge. Don't get caught up on the numbers because the numbers change, right? The key is the first 7 questions are all about the 7 spheres of domain of functioning in your life: your marriage, your family, your leisure time, your money matters, things like that. Okay. And the composite score gives you a gauge so that you know whether you're in a transforming stage or you need to do some work. And the second part of it is a compassion scale. So it gives you your self-esteem score. It lets you know how much you actually love yourself. So you're going to have a pictorial representation of exactly where you are today in the moment and where you might want to pay a little attention to optimize your balance in your life.
I love that. And guys, Dan, if you want to put that full screen right now, you've created a very special link for everybody who's watching here today on the book launch for people to go take this. It's absolutely free. There's, you know, go through it. Again, it's your composite of today. How are you feeling right now, right here today? So as soon as we wrap up recording, don't do it right now. Just give us another minute. Go ahead and go to that. It's bit.ly/Dr. J Vera Breakthrough. You guys can see that on the screen. Make sure you guys go ahead over, take that, fill out those 17 questions, and then if there are areas where they see like, you know what, I really need some help here, or I need some help here, you can actually then help them to overcome those. All that's on there where they can kind of take that next step. They can see how they can work with you, whether it be through programs or, you know, just working with you more in depth as a mentor. There's all kinds of things and ways that you can help them.
And you remember that little paper thing? I walk you through how to actually do that.
Ooh, I love it.
For free.
Ooh, I love it. So again, make sure you guys head to that link. The other big thing is this book came out today. Make sure you go and grab it. Amazon.com is the best place to get it. The Big Secret with Jack Canfield and Miss Dr. J. Really cool book. Lots of great stuff. And you can learn more about what we talked about here today, the 3R process. We go through those 7 success tips to find your essence. All of that is in the book. This has been kind of fun. I think we have a few minutes left over. You want to take some questions?
Let's do it.
I love it. So what I want you guys to do right now is right next to the video is a place where you can send in questions for Dr. J about anything we talked about, whether it's about the 3R process, if it's about the work that she does, about the book that she wrote, or the 7 secret success tips to help you to find your essence. Whatever that you want, make sure that you send it in right now. We are going to take a very short commercial break. While we do, head to Amazon, get a copy of the book, head to that link, take that Fit Life Score, find out your score. Make sure you work with her because she can really help you to find that path to living a better life. It is the Big Secret. We'll be back in just a minute with more with Dr. J.